Okay, we're going to come back into order here. You have something, Chairman? All righty. We're going to come on back. Chairman England had to go meet with a former senator really quickly. He'll be joining us here shortly. But I believe we have President Kill on the line. Mr. President?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, thank you for joining us this evening. We look forward to hearing about the exciting things at Augusta University and our Georgia Cyber Center as well. Handing the floor over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Chairman Tillery. And ladies and gentlemen, I greatly appreciate the opportunity to spend a little time with you and talk about the Georgia Cyber Center. And but before I do, please just let me also add my incredible thanks to you for all the work that you do for the great state of Georgia, day in and day out. We especially appreciate the work you've been doing under the most unusual and difficult times I think that any of us have ever faced. And I would be certainly remiss if I didn't say how much we certainly appreciate the support you've given to the University System of Georgia and to Augusta University. So please let me start by saying thank you. And I will end with saying thank you, but I don't think we can never say that enough. And I hope you never get tired of hearing it, because we certainly never get tired of saying it. Next slide, please. What I want to be able to do today is to talk about the Georgia Cyber Center. I'm under the impression that some of the members of this committee may not have had an opportunity to know much about the Georgia Cyber Center, or may not have had a chance to visit. And I'm sure you're probably asking yourself, what is this facility that you have provided support for, that the state of Georgia has provided support for? So I want to tell you a little bit about how we came to be, and then I will spend some time talking to you about the incredibly unique things that are offered at the Georgia Cyber Center. We're very, very proud to be in a state that has made this sort of investment in the area of cyber and cybersecurity. It sets us apart from virtually every other state in the union, and I hope to have the chance to be able to spend some time with you to do that, and I'll open things up for some questions. Next slide, please. The impetus for the creation of the Georgia Cyber Center really started back in 2013, when the Pentagon made the decision and announced that they were moving the U.S. Army Cyber Command from Fort Meade in the Northeast all the way down to Fort Gordon here in Augusta. And we are incredibly fortunate as a state, but also as a community, to have Fort Gordon located right here in Augusta. It has always been a significant part of the fabric of our community. Very proud of that relationship. And we knew right away that the announcement of this move was going to change the very face of Augusta, and it was going to do it in many, many ways. And subsequently, it would change the very face of the state of Georgia as well. Next slide, please. Overall, the move has an unbelievable impact on our area. It's going to be a little over $2 billion in construction. New construction will be occurring through 2030. When it's all said and done by 2023, I'm told there will be an additional 13,200 new employees and family members, military and civilians, that will be relocating to the Augusta area. And that's going to have a huge impact on our community and our state. The actual 3-star command flag was transferred here on this past July 2020. And so the facility is up and functional, and the flag has been transferred. Now, we knew that when the Army made this decision that Augusta and the state of Georgia was going to be hit by what we're calling a cyber tsunami. Not just the move of the Army and all of its individuals, but all the government contractors that are supporting that mission will be moving to this area. And we recognize that we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get prepared for this cyber tsunami. And if we weren't prepared for this cyber tsunami, both as a community, a state, but also as a university, it was going to wash right on by us, and we will have lost this opportunity. Next slide, please. So we began to start thinking about what should we put in place to take advantage of this opportunity, to support the mission of the Army, but also to translate that mission support into economic development for our state. And we began to give thought to what would it take? Wouldn't it be cool if in one facility, in one location, we can have academia, industry, and government co-located in the same building? And if you're able to see the slides and you see those footprints are intentional to help us understand that the concept here is for a student to be able to walk right out of the classroom and walk across the hall to do an internship with a major industry or business in cybersecurity, or with the federal or state government that's involved in this opportunity. What an incredible opportunity for our students and for workforce development to be able to do that. And we said, in addition to having these three partners, the federal and state government, industry, and academia, what if you put a cyber range in this facility too? So we could provide state-of-the-art training for not only to train students, but also state-of-the-art training for industry and business and for our state government entities in being able to address, protect, and defend against cybersecurity threats. And then what if we had a place where the Army could also be a part of this and our armed forces so that they could be outside of the fence in civilian space, but at the same time have space there, control space, classified space, that those sort of meetings could take place. And then what if we also had law enforcement, because obviously cybercrime is getting to be a huge issue for us. And right in the middle of this facility, what if we put a coffee shop? Now, the coffee shop might sound trivial in the grand scheme of things, but that's probably one of the most important aspects about this, because it further emphasizes the concept of collaboration. We want students and government employees and industry leaders to be able to rub shoulders, to bump into each other over a cup of coffee or in some of the shared spaces so that they can collaborate. We created an ecosystem that's hugely important for this concept to work. And we began to put thoughts together as how we could construct this, how we could build this, and what it might look like. Next slide, please. We began to have conversations in the fall of 2016, began to have conversations with Governor Deal and his staff on what it would take to create the Georgia Cyber Center. In January 2017, Governor Deal announced the formation of the Georgia Cyber Center, and through your generosity and support, $65 million was appropriated to build the first building. 6 months later, we broke ground on that first building, and simultaneously with that, Augusta University created a separate school of computer and cyber sciences to address some of the training and educational needs to meet the workforce needs here. We began to recruit a dean and faculty for that school. 6 months later, in January 2018, we broke ground on a second building because it became very apparent that just one facility wasn't going to be big enough to meet the entire needs that we had. And as we started getting the word out that we were creating this center, we had contacts from all over the country wanting to be a part of this because they could see what was about to be developed here in Augusta. 6 months later, in July of 2018, we opened the doors on the Home Ignite, the first building, and the Governor Deal also created the Georgia Bureau of Investigation Cyber Crime Center was established in part of that facility, and I'll speak to that in just a minute. That was July 2018, and then in January 2019, we opened the second building, the Schaffer McCartney building, both buildings at about 160,000 square feet. From the start of the conversations we had until we opened the doors on two facilities totaling 330,000 square feet was 2.2 years. Absolutely unheard of in terms of being able to construct facilities in that rapid a time. It was a $100 million investment by the state of Georgia, to date the largest single investment in cybersecurity by any state. Next slide, please. The Georgia Cyber Center is two buildings. The first is roughly 167,000 square feet, and it contains the cyber range and the academic space for the School of Computer and Cyber Sciences at Augusta University, and also training space for Augusta Technical College, I'll mention in a minute. The second building is roughly the same size, about 165,000 square feet. It contains incubator and accelerator space and also specific office space needed. Total of about 330,000 square feet. There's control building access. There's also control meeting space, which allows us to hotel, if you will, security briefing space to meet the high security demands of government and related contractors that will be occupying these two buildings. We have a cutting edge cyber range and about a 5,000 square foot capture the flag and other cyber conference meeting space in the facility, and a 340-seat auditorium for both private and public events that gives us very unique conferencing space to meet the training and education needs of all the entities in these facilities. Next slide, please. The second building was really more incubator and accelerator space. We want to provide space for business and industry to locate to and to grow. and to foster innovative and entrepreneurial companies to move to this area and to be located in this same space because we have provided ample space for collaboration. We have 10 classrooms and 11 computer labs equipped for both virtual and on-site training. In conjunction with the City of Augusta, and I am incredibly proud of the participation of our partners here in Augusta, we built an adjacent 750 space parking deck for about $16 million in collaboration with the city, and we're most grateful for that support. These individuals that we're hiring to work in these facilities, by and large, are millennials. They thrive on space that allows them to live, work, play, eat, and recreate all in the same location. The location of this facility was on some land that Augusta University owned that was given to us, 17 acres right on the Savannah River. It's beautiful space adjacent to hotel, convention space, restaurants, and access to up to 50 miles of hiking and biking trails. It is a millennial's dream come true that makes it very attractive for us to recruit business and industry here to this community. Next slide, please. Our mission is to cultivate a cyber ecosystem that combines the talent of government, academia, and private industry with the intent of providing our state and nation with a decided advantage in cyberspace. Next slide, please. In terms of the specific mission, we want to deliver affordable and relevant education, training, and help develop the region's cybersecurity workforce. But in addition to that, it's not just a glorified classroom, as important as that is, but it's also bringing expertise from across a wide variety of individuals and folks to solve very complex cybersecurity challenges and offer unbiased advice to policymakers in the state of Georgia. Next slide, please. I cannot overemphasize the important role that this cyber ecosystem plays. In fact, it is absolutely a requirement before anyone is allowed to come and move into this space and rent space that they buy into this concept of education, of training, of collaboration. The true partnership between academia, industry, and government is one of the things that makes this facility so incredibly unique and gives us the potential competitive edge that you can't find anywhere else. Next slide, please. And because of this cyber ecosystem, it was important to us that we didn't just have it classroom or just have it government or just have it industry. And if you look at the pie chart on the right, this shows you the percent occupied by rentable square feet from academia, government, and industry. Academia currently occupies about 26%, government about 37%. This is both federal and state. And industry about 37% as well. So it's fairly well split among those three entities, which we thought was very important. But in terms of lease payments, you can see that academia pays the least amount of rent or lease for this space, which makes sense, only 8%. The state, federal government, 33%, and industry makes up 60% of lease payments for the facility. We feel this is a good balance, but I think it really emphasizes the important role that we felt of having this ecosystem, and the role that it would play was hugely important to us. Next slide, please. Developing the workforce is critical to this and is a huge component of what we do. But again, while we have classical classroom experience, as you would expect, we also have the opportunity to take advantage of expertise that's far and wide now located in Augusta. And a lot of that expertise is located out of Fort Gordon. We have the chance to train individuals who are interested in cybersecurity, whether it's a formal degree or an industry recognized standard, and have that training be performed by some of the world's leading experts in the area of cybersecurity, providing real life, real time, real opportunities for learning for these students, and address the workforce needs that cybersecurity companies are going to need when they come to this particular area. Next slide, please. We stood up, as I mentioned, the School of Computer and Cyber Sciences. Right now, Augusta University is offering 5 undergraduate degrees in information technology, computer science, and cybersecurity, and 2 graduate degrees in this area. I've underlined the Bachelor of Science in Cybersecurity Engineering, and we're very grateful to Chancellor Wrigley and the Board of Regents for approving this degree. It is the only bachelor's degree in cybersecurity engineering in the Southeastern United States. And we're really, really excited about the opportunities that it's going to be and provide to us, offering state-of-the-art, unique training opportunities for students. Next, please. But it's not just the formal degrees, as I mentioned. We have a great collaboration with the Augusta Technical College, who also teaches courses and teaches their cyber programs in this same space. I'm told that this is if not the only, it's one of the very few buildings or spaces in the entire state of Georgia where the technical college system and the university system of Georgia are co-located in the same space, and provides us with very unique opportunities for bridging programs so that students who go to Augusta Tech for a technical component degree can seamlessly transfer, if they wish, right into Augusta University and go on to that bachelor's degree, master's, or even eventually PhD if they so desire. The seamless transition is hugely important to us, and, and having both of us co-located in this building makes that very easy to accomplish. Next slide, please. One of the other partners that we have that we are really, really excited about is the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. As I mentioned, Governor Deal stood up a cybercrime task force as part of the GBI. I believe you're going to be hearing from the director of the GBI right after me, and I'm sure he can elaborate on this. I don't want to steal his thunder, but I got to tell you what an incredible opportunity it is for us and what a wonderful partner the GBI is. Next slide, please. They have state-of-the-art facilities in the Cyber Center. This is one of their forensics laboratories, and it's not just internet crime or web-based crime that they're investigating, but they have the capabilities to look at any sort of device that might be involved in the crime, whether it's a smartwatch, a smartphone, or the computer in your car. They can now analyze this in this facility to be able to help solve crimes that are very technical in nature. They have been marvelous partners, and some of their agents actually teach in our programs, and they're offering internship opportunities for our students as well. Just imagine if you were a student who wanted to get into forensic cybersecurity, to be able to go to this location, get your training, and work with the GBI and real life crime, cybercrime opportunities is just incredible. So my hat's off to our good friends at the GBI. Next slide, please. Every large business or university or government function has some form of a security operations center, or SOC, it's sometimes called, SOC. And this is a place where we can 24 hours a day in real time monitor the internet traffic is coming into our institution. It helps us in a very proactive way keep cyber attacks from occurring. This is the Security Operations Center we just recently opened in the Georgia Cyber Center. Augusta University invested nearly $2 million in setting up this facility, but we also bought into this ecosystem. It's not just a place where we can maintain security operations for the university and the health system, but it is also a teaching SOC. We have intern opportunities for our students there, and our students can graduate with a degree in computer or cyber sciences with real life, real time experience doing security operations, and makes them incredibly competitive in the marketplace. We can also offer this service to other entities, both government or private, and be able to do their security operations for this particular center too. A very novel concept and one that we're really, really excited about. It gives us a chance to take advantage of this ecosystem, do something very unique. Next slide, please. This just very quickly shows you just a few of the partners that have already moved in. And as you glance across this, again, you see that the emphasis on industry, academia, and government. And we're already have about 90% or more of both buildings completely occupied. Of the total 330,000 square feet, we're at about 91% occupied. That's either leased under construction, or leased waiting for construction. And we're quickly getting to the point that where we no longer have additional space to expand. Next slide, please. Now, we are really blessed to have incredible executive leadership with proven experience and expertise. Excuse me. Michael Schaffer is the Executive Vice President for Strategic Partnerships and Economic Development. He leads charge on the whole program. On the far right, you see Colonel Eric Toller, just recently retired from the Army. Colonel Toller was a director of NSA Georgia here for 2 years, and he's got tremendous expertise and contacts in the field of military and government contractors with regards to for the Georgia Cyber Center. The bottom right is Captain Chris Apsey, also just retired from the military. He stood up the cyber range at Fort Gordon Cyber Center, and he has great experience in cyber range. He's now the director of our cyber range, and he's got tremendous expertise. And Sarah Reese is currently in the National Guard. She's director of our Workforce Academy and our training opportunities, brings a wealth of experience with her. One of the advantages we have of being in Augusta with Fort Gordon here is that we have access to all this incredible expertise. We're not only training future workforce, but we're also hiring as these outstanding individuals come out of armed services. Next slide, please. This expertise gives us an opportunity to do more for the state of Georgia, and we're beginning to expand into a couple of projects that I think can have real impact on the state. Some experiments, if you will, in cybersecurity. The first I want to just mention briefly is rural broadband. We all know very well that we are in desperate need as a state for 100% terrestrial broadband coverage. That's a tall order, we know that, but we are in the middle of doing an experiment. We're currently contracted with a wireless internet expert, excuse me, to perform technology survey in Taliaferro County over several months. This survey will test 5 different types of technologies and frequencies usage in Taliaferro County. And we are going to use Taliaferro County as a general representation of the terrain of the rest of the state of Georgia, possible exception of North Georgia, of course, because of the mountains. And we hope that this will give us a real good idea of what's the best type of technology and frequency to allow us to try to beam broadband coverage to the widest area possible. We're excited about this. And Chairman Tiller, we greatly appreciate the support and the encouragement you've been giving us to move in this direction. So please stay tuned. We hope to have some results on this in the coming months. Next slide, please. And then, of course, rural coding. How do we give rural Georgians access to the same high quality computer science and cyber education as those that live in large cities? We're beginning to do another experiment to invest in an open source platform that will allow us to provide a variety of self-paced curriculum and hands-on content. We want to develop curriculum for teachers to be able to use, whether you are in Atlanta or Albany, and be able to get that to these teachers free of charge so they can provide it to their students, whether they have internet access or not. And as we address the broadband coverage, this will give us a chance for students, no matter where they're located in the state of Georgia, to be able to beam directly into the Georgia Cyber Center and take advantage of our computer opportunities and the platforms that we have there, the cyber range and those sorts of things. And we hope to be able to get support to do this so we can offer this free of charge to anybody in the state of Georgia. Next slide, please. There we go. Thank you. And lastly, I want to just mention that the state has made one heck of an investment in this facility, and we appreciate that. $100 million in facilities, another $7.4 million in AV and networking. One of the worst things we could do is not plan to refresh this technology, both the IT aspects of it, but also the facilities. We've done 2 plans for refreshing. IT, a refresh plan based on 10 years with 3% inflation, and it's going to require us to encumber $1 million annually. And the facilities refresh plan based on 20 years at 3% inflation, it's going to require an annual encumbrance of $1.6 million. So we are in the process now of making a total annual encumbrance commitment of $2.6 million, so we can continually make sure that this facility is state of the art and that the technology we have in that facility is cutting edge. Our intent is to make the Georgia Cyber Center self-sufficient over the long haul so that we don't have to come see you every 5 years for a small cap or something along those lines. Next slide, please. So I'll stop there, Mr. Chairman. And again, just want to thank you for the opportunity. I hope that any of you who wants will take the opportunity when things come down a little bit to come. We'd love to give you a tour. You really have to see this facility to understand its significance and to believe it. We just are so grateful for the support that you have given and continue to give. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
Dr. Keel, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for running over a lot of things that we've talked about offline over this year, including forensic cybersecurity, the broadband initiatives that the Cyber Center has taken under its wing, rural coding, telelearning and also the commitment that your university makes to another big field that we're looking at, which is forensic pathologists. So you play a large role in many of the issues we're looking at across the state. I'll have to tell you, though, I didn't know how good you guys were until you made the comment about your combined working together with the GBI at the exact time that Director Reynolds walked into the room. I don't know how you pulled that off from 100 miles away and not being able to see him, but that cyber center must be working pretty well to pull that off. We do have a few questions here in the audience.
I'd rather be lucky than good.
There's a few questions here. I think some of them came in online, and Chairman England's going to read them to you now.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Dr. Keel. Hope y'all are doing well down that way. First off,
Chairman, thank you very much.
First off, this is a general comment from Representative Dominic Laricchia, floor leader, just telling everybody, our staff here and all the presenters, what a great job they've done, and that he feels very confident that we're going to be able to communicate effectively and efficiently with people all over Georgia. So I just wanted to put that on the front end. Moving on to the questions, though, Representative Al Williams saying, thank you to Dr. Keel. Your efforts have sealed the fact that Georgia leads the nation in military might and with the Cyber Center, or Cyber Command. So just another comment there. Senator Kay Kirkpatrick, however, is asking, and it is, I guess, related to your comments about the work you're looking at in Tolliver County, is why are we specifying terrestrial broadband? Isn't the new satellite coverage a potential solution?
And I'll try to address that question. I may have to punt that to some of our expertise and get back with you on that. But I think it's going to require full court press in terms of providing the expertise that we're talking about here. Certainly, the cloud does represent an opportunity for data storage and those sorts of things. You've got to have access to that just as well as you need access to terrestrial broadband as well. I think the terrestrial broadband gives individuals a greater opportunity and a wider opportunity for access to information than potential satellite would. So the experiment that we're doing in Tolliver County, I think will at least let us know if terrestrial broadband is possible. And if it is, what's the best technology available? And we can, I think, get to this answer fairly quickly and fairly inexpensively without investing a huge amount of money in that. And it may very well be that once we run this experiment and get the results from these 5 technologies and frequencies, that we need to look in a different direction. And if that's the case, we certainly will. I hope that gets to what you want, and if not, we'll gladly get you more information on that.
Okay, and the next one is related along that line from Senator Larry Walker. Does fixed-base wireless, when there is fiber accessed at an elevated structure, i.e. a silo, a radio tower, water tower, fire tower, that sort of thing, show merit for isolated rural areas? And if you could, please also speak to the EMC's efforts to provide broadband. That might be a piece that you're not really familiar with just yet.
No, you're exactly right, Mr. Chairman. I'm not very familiar with that. I certainly do appreciate that question, and I'll have to punt on that one as well. The fixed-base wireless and fiber, of course, fiber access is an issue of how do you get fiber to every single household in rural Georgia, which is one of the reasons why wireless broadband technologies and the way that we're going is, can you set powers up to be able to broadcast wireless technology and do that in a much cheaper way than actually trying to run fiber, which has been a real stumbling block in terms of getting access to every household in the state, which is ultimately what we want to do.
We've got a question in the audience. Chairman Albers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Keel. Love all the great work you're doing, and I've seen it just bring great fruits to our state. Can you tell me how you are coordinating and working with some of the other great cyber programs we have at University of North Georgia, Kennesaw State, Georgia Tech, Columbus State, et cetera?
No, that's a great question. And obviously being in the university system, one of the members of the university system of Georgia, we are reaching out to our counterparts across the state. The university system actually has an office in the Georgia Cyber Center now so that they can help coordinate these efforts across the state. We're beginning to look at collaborative efforts with Georgia Tech even as we speak especially on some of the rural coding aspects in terms of coming up with more curriculum that can be utilized in both K through 12 as well as higher education. And once we get the cyber range really up and running and functioning quite well, you don't have to physically come to Augusta to take advantage of it. So any of our brother or sister institutions across the state, whether they're in the USC or the technical college system, ultimately would be able to have access to the cyber range and the curriculum that we're developing there as well, so they can train their students for whatever campus that they're in, as well as K through 12. We want to provide this sort of education all the way down into K through 12, because as you well know, the future of our workforce needs are going to be dependent on getting young people interested in this area and allowing them to get their hands on this stuff and get dirty with it, if you will, at a very early age so that they can get excited about it moving forward.
I think that's handled the questions. We may have one more from the online.
Yes, real quickly, I know we're bumping up against our quit time. Is Chairman Dave Belton asking, can you just give a quick idea, give us a quick idea of what the economic impact of the $2.5 billion yearly impact, 79,000 jobs that Fort Gordon has and is having in Augusta?
No, that's another great question. We're actually in the process of doing that economic development study even as we speak. Right now, we have in the 2 years or so, we've been operational 514 announced jobs with an additional 150 jobs affected. We'll know the exact number after as several of the federal partners keep such information confidential. And once we have a chance to do a community-wide economic development study. As you know, we're being very selective in terms of who we allow to come into space so that they can participate in this ecosystem. We could go with large numbers of jobs like a call center, if you will. That's not what we really need. We need the high-tech jobs, and sometimes those companies are going to be a little smaller, but the overall economic impact is going to be larger, much larger because of the salaries that they pay. So I hope that gets to your point.
It does, and with that, I think you've exhausted all the questions. President Keel, thank you again for being here today, and thank you for allowing Mr. Schaffer and Captain Apsey at the Cyber Command or Cyber Center to work with us on various projects throughout the year, including working to expand rural broadband. That's been a huge thought and a huge priority of many of our members, and their inclusion was very much a part of the success that we think we're going to have. Appreciate you doing that.
Mr. Chairman, we work for you, so we stand ready to help in any way we can.
Hey,
we greatly appreciate your support too.
And we know we work for Georgians, and they've made it very clear this is one of their priorities. So thank you for helping us address it. We do appreciate that. Thank you again for being present here today. And with that, we'll move to our next presenter, which will be the director of the GBI, Mr. Vic Reynolds. Yes, sir. We'll have the podium mic on.
All right, thank you. All right. Will you be helping me with the slide? Great, thank you so much. Good afternoon. Let me just take a moment, too, to graciously thank Dr. Keel, being a former Georgia Southern. He was president of the Eagle Nation down there, and I'm a Southern graduate, so I had an occasion to meet him. Thank you for his kind words about our relationship with the Cyber Center. It's something that's very important to the Bureau and doing a lot of good work over there, so thank you for his gracious comments. I do want to just take a moment to let you know, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you, and I have with me today Mr. John Melvin, who's the Assistant Director of the GBI, Dr. Jonathan Eisenstadt, who's the Chief Medical Examiner, and Ms. Connie Buck. I know you all know Connie well. She's our CFO, so we appreciate them taking time to be with me today, and they're available in the event you or any other folks need them for any reason. Obviously, it's been a very busy year for the GBI in 2020. Besides everything that we do day in and day out, we've had an extremely busy year, beginning with the circumstances down in Glenn County and the Arbery case, where the Bureau became involved in it, on up and through the pandemic situation, the summer unrest, our assistance to the Secretary of State in a limited fashion during the election issues, and back now to the end of the year. It's been a very, very busy year, and I'm going to touch on some of the things that we did this year besides what's in the governor's budget recommendations on some questions that have been posed to me by various legislators over the course of 2020 and some things they were interested in, so I'll touch on those as well. But getting started on the actual budget recommendations, if you can put up the first slide for me, please. So relatively clear-cut budget recommendations. In amended FY21, there are two issues, and I'll begin with number one. That's the replacement of motor vehicles. That's a large amount of money. It's $4.17 million, but let me explain to you what that consists of. There's 70 investigator vehicles, and by that I mean the actual vehicles that our boots-on-the-ground agents drive around the state of Georgia. There are 70 of those being replaced at a cost of $46,500 each. We're also replacing 6 bomb squad vehicles. They cost us $67,000 each, and we're rechassing 6 crime scene response vehicles at $85,000 each, and that's what totals up to be that amount of money, a large amount of money that you see in amended FY21 under the first number about the vehicles. Moving down into number 2, and it's somewhat related into the single item in FY22 as well, and they both have to do with the GBI's work regarding gangs around the state of Georgia. So let me begin by talking a little bit about number 2 in amended FY21. That's a criminal gang database. Most of you may be aware, and those of you who are not, in 2010 the legislature actually passed a law giving the authority to develop a statewide gang database. For a number of years that sat dormant. Nobody took on the proverbial elephant in the room until we decided to begin addressing those issues at the end of 19 and early 20. We developed phase 1 of the database. We actually did not go outside of the state. We actually used the IT department with DCS, and some of you may be aware they have an extremely talented IT department there, and so they helped us develop phase 1 of the database. And what we did under that phase is we migrated about 17 to 18,000 convicted gang members around the state of Georgia through our partnership with DOC into that phase 1 database, and we began pushing it out to our users around the state. The good thing about this database is it's free of charge. It doesn't cost anybody any money, any of our law enforcement partners around the state, to use that. And so now we're ready to begin the push in phase 2. And what phase 2 is actually our partners' ability to enter information themselves. In other words, let's say hypothetically you're in the criminal gang database down in Bibb County or Lowndes County or up in North Georgia. If you're part of this database, then in phase 2, once we finish that process, those partners, once they're trained by the GBI, can begin entering that information themselves. And so we expect that database to exponentially grow from the 17 or 18,000 folks in there now to information provided by our partners. And the reason and the thrust behind this database is so in the event you're working a gang case in Muskogee County in Columbus and you want to know whether or not that individual who you're working a case on has a prior gang connection anywhere else in the state of Georgia, then through this database you can find that information out and be connected to that particular investigator, whether or not it's in Cobb County or Chatham County or wherever it may be. And so that's the purpose of the database, and we're very excited about that. We believe it's going to really help law enforcement. And that cost under item 2 centers around extending and expanding the database into that next phase. Ironically, the single item in FY22 is also connected to that, and those are 3 positions to support the legal division and the task force. If you could flip up the next slide for me, please. Thank you. A little bit about the history of what we've been doing there so I can tie in both the FY22 matter and the matter in FY21. The GBI Gang Task Force is something that hit the ground running pretty strong in the summer of 19 to begin working gang cases around the state of Georgia. Primarily, initially, the thrust of that task force was up in North Georgia simply because we wanted to make sure it was working the appropriate way, and we kind of had a hands-on approach. And so the task force was based here in the metropolitan area and began working cases from Atlanta northward. We soon expanded that down to the middle Georgia corridor. We sat and worked with the sheriffs both in Bibb County and Baldwin County to work that Macon-Milledgeville corridor, some areas that we were really concerned about some gang activity there. And so we began expanding our task force down into the middle Georgia area as well. But to make sure that no area of the state was left out, what we've done is we've actually trained agents in all 15 regional offices, in the 4 regional drug enforcement offices, and in our specialized units to make sure we had a regional gang specialist no matter where you were in the state. So if you're in Coffee County at Region 4 office of the GBI and somebody there needed an individual who was a regional gang specialist, they have access to one. So we've tried to do that and spread it out across the entire state of Georgia. We've actually developed and implemented and trained all of our boots on the ground agents in the GBI on how to work gang cases, the way to work them appropriately, a way to use the criminal gang statute here in Georgia. We've also been fortunate enough to be asked to provide training to various magistrate judges in the state, several offices that we've been brought in to train them on the statute, as well as some of the DA's offices in the state. And the GBI is currently working with Post, Director Ayers at Post, to develop and implement a statewide training course there regarding criminal street gang investigations, prosecutions, and testimony. And I'm very proud of the fact that in partnership with the Georgia Gang Investigators Association, we've reached out and trained and spoke to over 3,000 law enforcement officers around the state of Georgia on how to use this very strong and powerful gang statute that the legislature developed, and also how to use this statewide gang database, not only in phase 1, but hopefully in phase 2 as well, if the budget goes through as requested. The second area that I want to touch on with you a little bit regarding the gang activity and the gang cases concern itself with a request of FY22, and that's the addition of 3 folks to the legal department of the Bureau. For years, the legal department in the Bureau basically did a single function, and that was to advise and kind of counsel the individuals at the Bureau regarding legal issues that may pop up. What we discovered as we began pushing out our gang task force is that there were some areas that when our agents would work cases, particularly long, complex gang cases involving multiple defendants, that we would have a little bit of difficulty. The local DA's offices just simply didn't have the manpower to handle those type of cases. And so last year, the legislature graciously gave the authority to lawyers in the GBI where they could be sworn in to help local DA's offices to help prosecute those cases. I do want to report back to you that we're currently handling over 100 defendants around the state of Georgia who have been indicted on gang cases. The GBI folks are doing that to assist the locals, including a large case, several large cases up in North Georgia, one in Middle Georgia, one in Macon. And so we're very good, very happy, and very honored and humbled to the fact that we can assist those local DA's offices around the state to expand their ability to prosecute and handle those cases. So that centers around what we're looking to do regarding the amount of money requested in FY22. If you could flip the next slide for me, please. Thank you. I also want to touch a little bit on our HEAT unit. It's a brand new unit that we developed in the course of 2020 regarding the issue of human trafficking, both sexual exploitation trafficking and labor trafficking. Labor trafficking was an area that, in looking back over the course of the Bureau's history, we just had not spent a great deal of time and effort on, just simply because of everything else we were doing. And so we developed a unit within the GBI, acronym is HEAT, H-E-A-T, and the focus of that particular unit is to work commercial sex trafficking and labor trafficking. I want you to know that we hit the ground running on that as well on July the 1st of 2020, and we've already been working up to 55 separate investigations, 9 of which have centered around specific sex trafficking, 4 around the labor trafficking issue. We have 10 we're reviewing right now for the possibility of getting involved, and in 32 cases, as a GBI frequently does, we've assisted the locals on those particular issues around the state. So that's another unit that I'm very, very proud of. It's a brand new unit, and they're doing great work around the entire state of Georgia. Next slide, please. I also want to touch on a little bit about some questions that I've been asked about officer-involved shootings. That's always an extremely labor-intensive area that the GBI is involved in. This past year, we worked 96 officer-involved shootings and 30 use of force cases for a total of 126 cases. Last year, in 2019, on the officer-involved side, that increased by 12. We worked 84 in 2019, so those numbers shot up. Interestingly enough, out of the 126 cases that we worked involving either officer-involved shootings or use of force cases, that encompassed or occurred in 63 of the 159 counties in Georgia. So hopefully you were blessed enough to live in one of the 96 cases where that did not occur, but in the other 63, we did work those cases. Interestingly enough, out of the 126 counts or cases that we worked, 45 of those, or 36%, occurred here in Region 10 in the metropolitan Atlanta area. And so it's a very busy area here for Region 10 and working both officer involved and use of force cases. That's a very, very demanding investigation that we do. It's use of force would be virtually chokeholds, any type of physical force used on someone that got reported by the individual against whom the force was used and an investigation was done. And so it could be a number of separate uses of force, but it could be a taser, it could be things of that nature, chokeholds. All of those are encompassed within that use of force, and we were called out to do those 30 times. All right, next slide, please. I also want to report to you, I know I stood with you last year and told you that we have to do something about the backlog in the crime lab. I told you that it was an extreme concern of mine. It was at the very top of my list in 2020 to address. As I stood before you this time last year in the crime lab, we had a backlog of 44,000 cases. That number actually shot up to 46,000 over the next couple of months as we began really putting our nose to the grindstone. And as I sat down with the new director of the crime lab and Assistant Director Melvin, and I had a number of conversations about what can we do to do something about those numbers. I'm happy to report to you, and I'll tell you why in a moment, that as I stand before you today, that 44 to 46,000 case backlog as of January the 12th is down to 24,000 and some numbers. That's still too high, but I'm very proud of the fact that we've cut those numbers down some 20,000 in the course of 2020. We did that in several different ways. One is we did a really top to bottom search of the cases that we had in the crime lab about what we were doing on them. There were a number of cases that we had that we just simply should not have anymore. The age of the case, the various requests, and so we began sending some cases back to our law enforcement partners saying, do you still want us to do anything? I'm very happy to report to you that of all the cases we sent back, not a single one was sent back to us to say, do something, because we were clear with our partners that if you still need something in these cases, let us know. And no one has. I will also tell you that, and this is a big thank you to the folks in this room and to this legislative body, that outsourcing works. It's something that we're using in the crime lab. We need to use more of that, and we plan on it. And you all have helped us with that, and we sincerely appreciate that. As you can see by the chart, the backlog still consists primarily of two areas. Over half of the backlog, 62%, is in one area, and that's drug identification. Just identifying what kind of powder this is. Is it methamphetamine? Is it cocaine? Is it heroin? Is it fentanyl? And so that's where the majority of cases are. But if you combine that with forensic biology, which is DNA, those two areas together encompass 87% of the backlog in the crime lab, and 62% of that lies in one area. So obviously, as we begin outsourcing and continue to outsource, that's where we need to outsource. And we anticipate, with the money that you all have provided us sending out additional cases. In fact, we've got another 2,500 cases in the drug identification chemistry area that we anticipate sending out between now and March 1 of 2021. So again, we'll be sending out those numbers, and we appreciate that. We also have the DNA backlog reduction grant. We'll probably send out close to 1,400 DNA requests to the partners that we have in the private sector to help us with those. And so I will tell you unequivocally, categorically, that outsourcing is a great help, and we've got to be willing to do that. We've also got to be willing now, once we've plucked the proverbial low-hanging fruit in the crime lab and we've started cutting those numbers down sizably in a year, is now for us to make some really tough decisions in that lab about how we do our business. And by that, as I've told Assistant Director Melvin, during the course of the next 60 days or so, we're going to be sitting down with every department inside the crime lab. We're going to be working very closely with them about how we go about now taking even further steps to get that number down even more and more. One of the things that I told the employees of the GBI is that the mission of that bureau stays the same day in and day out. But the vision I have for the GBI is to be the absolute best investigative agency in the United States of America, not the second best and not one of the best, but the best. We cannot do that with those kind of numbers. We can't. We can't do it. And so I'm so proud of the fact that in the course of a 12-month period of time, by putting literally by working very, very hard, by doing the things that we needed to do, we've been able to literally cut that from about 46,000 cases down to 24 and some change. That's a good first step, but it's not the final step. And so we'll continue, and I will commit to you again, as I committed to you last year, that hopefully when I come back here, God willing, next year, that we'll have even better numbers to report, and we have to stay on top of that. We have new scientists coming on with us. I believe we have around 14 or so coming on with us by April, which will help again. And again, I thank you all for allowing us the budgetary ability to do that. You know, we wait on graduation normally to bring young scientists on, so we'll hopefully have a good number of those people joining us sometime around April to again begin pushing numbers down. Our training is so intense at the crime lab because of the criteria and expectations we have that it takes a while to get those people on the ground running. But we're beginning to look at different ways to do that as well. Should we train, for example, a drug chemist, train them to do at least one type of drug, where they're qualified to do a single drug before we move into training them on every other type of drug. In other words, if we train somebody and say they're certified to test for cocaine or methamphetamine, which is our #1 drug in Georgia, should we do that and then release them and let them go about training, let them go about testing methamphetamine cases? And so we're thinking about every avenue that we can at the Bureau to begin retooling, readdressing, relooking at the way the crime lab acts and conducts itself and does its business day in and day out. We've taken a good, strong first step. And I'm very proud of the work they've done over there, but I do want you to know categorically that we are not through with that. We're still tinkering with it, and we have to balance that again with the fact that the standard that's required of us around the state of Georgia. As a former trial lawyer myself, I will tell you that these individuals, along with the medical examiners, often make or break a case. And so it's extremely important that their credentials, their qualifications, their background is impeccable. And so we have to continue to balance those high standards with the fact that we've got to push the numbers down. But I did want you to know and hear that from me that we're pointed in the right direction. We've come down some close to 20,000 cases in the calendar year, and so I'm very proud of that. To be candid with you, the lack of the need of testimony, since there's no trials, has helped us as well. It's very difficult for a scientist to begin something and then be called out to another county and have to sit there the entire day before they testify. It takes away from their ability to work. But we really worked with their schedules during the pandemic. We allowed them to come in at different hours, worked around them so we could have as few people in the lab as possible at one time, and it's worked. And so I'm very proud of the direction the lab is headed. I also know too, although it's not part of the budget, there's been a great deal of questions both from individuals present with me today and online too about the medical examiner's office. I'm certainly ready to speak about that in the event, Mr. Chair, either Chairman Tillery, Chairman England, you want me to do that as well. But as far as the budgetary matters are concerned, that would be all I would need to address today.
Thank you, Director. We have several questions, and we'll start rolling into those first, and we may get to the points you mentioned at the end in just a second as well. First question, and President of the audience, is Chairman Albers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Director. First, thank you for the exceptional work. I think the GBI is already the #1 in the nation, if not the world. One question I do have, we've seen in the city of Atlanta specifically an extraordinary and very concerning increase in murders and violent crimes. In fact, I read something not too long ago that showed it was actually worse percentage-wise in the city of Chicago. is the city of Atlanta reaching out for the help of your team and your department in order to assist them to bring this under control?
I will tell you, Senator, that in the spirit of being extremely candid and full disclosure, in prior history, the GBI has not worked that closely with the city of Atlanta. As you know, we are an assisting agency, and so other than in some very limited areas, drugs, major cargo theft, crimes involving children, we have to be asked to do anything anywhere in the state, and that has not occurred in the city of Atlanta. Now, that doesn't mean that's the only place it hasn't occurred. There's other places too, and most of those are larger metropolitan counties because they have the manpower and the ability to work cases. But I will tell you this, Chief Bryan and I have started developing a pretty close relationship. We've broken bread together. He's reached out to us. In fact, our gang task force has been asked to come in and work cases with the city of Atlanta. That has not happened before. And so some of the cases, without speaking too much out of turn, it was a case who got a little bit of media coverage in the last couple of weeks on some arrest, one of which involved an individual in the entertainment business. That case was worked by APD along with the assistance of the GBI gang task force. That hasn't happened before. Chief Bryant has indicated to me that he anticipates working a very close relationship, a closer relationship with the Bureau. I'm very excited about that. I think it's going to happen, and I anticipate us working even closer with them as the future unfolds. To this point, that we've not had that kind of relationship with them. Again, that's not the only large department we haven't, because most of our work is done in all candor, with exception of officer-involved shootings and a few other types outside of the metro Atlanta area. But I will tell you that I firmly believe, and I've shared this with the chief, and I've shared it with other folks too, that I think the GBI as a force multiplier with APD could do a lot of good work here. And so I'm hoping that will in fact happen, and I believe in fact, based on my relationship with the chief and the fact he and I have spent time together and had some discussions, that in fact will begin happening.
I think we've got some questions online that Chairman England's going to hit first.
Okay, first one's coming from Senator Orrock, and let me back up for just a second before I get to her question. Just remind those that are sending some questions via text that it's for the committee members only. So if you're not on the committee, please send your question to a committee member and ask them if they would to ask it. We're just trying to maintain the standard that we set for all other committees and the operating process there. Not trying to be ugly or cause any problems, just want to let everybody know that. So Senator Orrock's question is, what steps do you expect the GBI needs to take regarding these militia or emerging militia formations in our state in light of the recent U.S. Capitol uprising?
I would tell, pardon me for my manners, is it Representative Orrock or Senator Orrock? Senator Orrock. I would tell Senator Orrock, and thank you for her question, that we consistently, through our GSAC unit, that's our Georgia Intelligence Sharing and Analysis Center, we continuously monitor various individuals and groups through social media and other outlets, which I'm not going to get terribly deep into here, but that we monitor those individuals and groups 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We have a watch desk that operates continuously where we receive tips continuously all the time about various individuals and groups, that we send those out to the locals to make sure that they're aware of any situations that occur. I will tell you that unit, the GSAC unit, within the last month has been named the top fusion center in the entire United States. It's the #1 fusion center over our great country, and so I'm extremely proud of the work they do. They constantly are feeding intelligence to the locals, to our state, to our federal partners. I was recently with the FBI special agent in charge in the state of Georgia. He was telling his superiors in Washington that he had never seen a closer working relationship than we have right now between our federal and state partners. You literally can go in GSAC see them working together. You wouldn't know who's an FBI agent, who's a GBI agent. We also, Senator Albers, to kind of touch on something a moment ago, we have started embedding some of our GSAC individuals in the Atlanta Police Operating Center. When that operates on any issues within the city, they've been gracious enough to allow our folks to come in there and assist them. So I would tell Senator Orrock that I feel very, very good about where we are intelligence-wise on any group that would pose any form of threat to any citizen of this state, and certainly any building, Capitol building, anything of that nature. You know, there's no crystal ball, and Lord knows I don't want to jinx us, but I will tell you that my relationship with Colonel Wright, his folks at State Patrol, Capitol Police, again, our relationship with FBI and our federal partners, and our burgeoning relationship with APD, I think we're probably in as good a position as we've been here in the state in a long, long time.
Good deal. Okay. Next is from Representative Scott Holcomb. Just asking, doesn't need something you need to answer right now because you may or may not know, but anyway, just asking, can we get some granularity on the backlog of sexual assault kits, numbers, and average time frames for processing?
Yes, I know it's, Representative Holcomb's worked extremely hard. That's one of his areas, and we've appreciated and respected his work in that area, and it's something that I've indicated to him I'm always concerned about. What I will do is sometime tomorrow, if Scott doesn't mind, I will reach out directly to him and I'll give him all those numbers, including a time frame, so he'll have that. He and I can address that together.
Very good. Next are a couple of comments. One is from Senator Dean Burke, just saying he's looking forward to working with the GBI in partnership with the Healthcare Workforce Board in partnership with Chairman Parrish on the medical examiner issue. And I know we've got, let me read one other comment and then we'll just ask you to touch real quickly on the medical examiner issue. The other one is from Representative Carl Gilliard, just saying he wanted to commend you on the outstanding job that you and your department have done in reference to the Glenn County and statewide in reference to the gang element. And just saying he appreciates there. That other part he might need to ask you offline, so I'll just leave it there.
All right.
And so kind of back to the medical examiner issue, if you don't mind, touch on that real quick.
Yes,
and
sir,
we've
I
got
will.
a couple of folks here that in the room that have some
Yes,
questions.
sir, I'll be very quick. May I trouble you to put my next slide up, if you would? I actually have some information that may help understand a little bit about where we're at.
I think it was down there. We may not be
Oh,
able to.
that's all right.
Let's see.
I can.
Hey, there we
Yeah,
go.
I think let's flip the next one if we could. Yeah, thank you so much. I will tell you that this is obviously, as I've expressed to some of you folks, an area of concern for the GBI. We began seeing it a good while ago, and it certainly came to light this past summer and fall regarding the situation in Macon. Some of you may not be aware, the National Association of Medical Examiners recommends that forensic pathologists have about 250, no more than 250 autopsies a year. That's what they recommend from a professional perspective that those individuals should do. As you can tell, as you begin looking at the chart to the right in CY, in year 17, 18, and 19, we were right at that 250 or so number. This last year in 20, that shot up over close to a little over 100 more autopsies per year per doctor. We're at 356 average autopsies a year for our medical examiners. Now, the reality is we have 3 vacancies. And some of you, I didn't know this, and Dr. Eisenstadt has really done a good job about educating me about the national shortage of forensic pathologists. We probably have 500, 550 forensic pathologists in the United States for 3 times those jobs, or at least 2.5 times those jobs. And so the numbers just don't work. And so one of the things that we've really tried to do is we've tried to figure out some way that we can not only recruit doctors for the GBI, but to keep them here. And if you'll flip me to the next chart, I'll show you what I mean by that. Just in the last 3 years, from 17 to 20, our autopsy numbers have went up almost 1,000 numbers in cases. I think it's 800 and some odd cases from CY 17 to CY20. They went up almost 600 from last year to this year. And the consultations, and what that is when doctors and ME and investigators and folks have to sit down with folks and go over very complex cases and decide what happened. That's a picture up there before pre-COVID of them working on one of these consultations, trying to decide literally what happened in a case. So they do that almost as many times as they do autopsies, and that's, that type of work, that volume of work is a tremendous, tremendous burden on these doctors. Let me see the last chart here, and I'll tell you, show you kind of really up front one of the issues that we face at the Bureau. If we could flip to the next one, please. Thank you. I want you to look over here. Let's look at the associate medical examiners, and those are just individuals who those are doctors who literally do most of the cutting day in and day out. I told Dr. Eisenstadt just to take some random areas and put up there about the amount of salary that we pay those, and you can see that GBI is at the bottom. When I was a DA in Cobb County and we decided to retool the medical examiner's office, we began by hiring 2 medical examiners to operate. They're now up to 3 in one county. And so what Cobb County did, and I'm ashamed to admit I was part of that hiring process, is they came down to the crime lab, to the medical examiner's office, and they hired 2 of them. They paid an associate medical examiner $60,000 more in a year to go up the road 25 miles to work in a single county for less cases. Now, my only concern, as much respect as I have for Dr. Eisenstadt, is I'm surprised he didn't go. And the chief medical examiner there, an individual who worked for Dr. Eisenstadt, who was one of his doctors, was hired up there as a chief medical examiner and immediately had a higher salary than the man who he had worked for at the GBI. We've got to have, we need some help. It's my goal, it's Dr. Eisenstadt's goal, to make sure we have medical examiners, obviously not only at headquarters, not only at Pooler, but at Macon as well. And so we've got to find a way to put somebody in Macon. This week, Monday, yesterday, at headquarters, Dr. Eisenstadt was supposed to be off, but yesterday, 53 new cases at headquarters. 53. Now, they've got to do those. There's families waiting on those bodies to get back, to bury them. And the reality is, we've got to I told Dr. Eisenstadt, and he agrees with me, I think if we get some help for these folks, I give you my word, I commit to you, we'll recruit the hell out of them. I'll do whatever it takes. I will go wherever I need to go. So will he. And we will get these folks here. We've got a guy right now in Florida we're talking to. We've offered him a job, a pathologist from Florida, but so have 2 other areas. I guarantee you, I don't even know where the areas are, but I guarantee you, without any equivocation, we're the lowest paid point. I don't have any doubt. I don't have any doubt we are. And so that's what he faces when he goes out and recruits. We've got a young lady we're praying will come on with us when she graduates this summer. The reality is that she can go anywhere in the United States and work. And I don't say that flippantly. She can go anywhere in the United States and work. And most of these kids coming out of school have $200,000, $250,000, $300,000 loans. And Dr. Eisenstadt, I cannot begin to tell you what kind of medical examiner he is and what his reputation is, what the reputation of the GBI Medical Examiner's Office is. And that in and of itself sells a lot of people. But standing alone compared when you can go down the road, when you can drive to Fulton, when you can drive to DeKalb, and find yourself in a better position, that's tough to compete with. I don't want to mislead you. And that's what we're faced with and what Dr. Eisenstadt and his crew is faced with day in and day out. I think last Monday, or the Monday before, we had 54 new cases at headquarters, 9 in Pooler and 4 in Macon.
We have 2 part-timers helping us in Macon. I don't know how he found them, but Dr. Eisenstadt found 2 part-timers who are willing to help, but they won't do homicide cases. They said, we don't want to go back and testify. We don't want to get on the road. We don't want to go back into court. And a lot of our cases are homicide cases. And so that's what we're butting our heads up against. And I don't want to, you know, I just want to tell you that, you know, I respect and I appreciate so much you all. Several of you have reached out to me and asked what you could do to help. And I just want you to hear again from me and from my lips, and to have Dr. Eisenstadt here, that if we get some of that assistance, we will do the rest of it, I promise. We'll tote the water, and we'll go wherever we need to go to get folks. He's had Emory personnel into the ME's office recently to begin fostering a relationship with them. He's had conversations with Mercer. Thank you, Representative England, for helping us with that, and Senator Tillery. He's reached out to them and developed a relationship with them. You know, with Augusta, and we need to do that with Morehouse as well. We need to find these young doctors who are willing to go into this field and get them here, and hopefully lock them down and keep them. And so again, it's not my nature to whine. I'm not a whiner, but I apologize if it sounds that way. I just want you to understand the position we're in at the ME's office.
Thank you, Director. We have one question from the audience. Chairman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, thank you for coming today and
Yes, sir.
sharing with us. My question is, and you kind of touched on it right at the end, would we possibly be able to reopen the crime lab in Augusta?
I'll be candid with you, sir. I don't see that happening. I don't want to mislead you. I wish, this is what my wish was. My wish would be that we had it open in Somerville, we had it open in Augusta, we had it open in every place that we've ever had it. It would make our life at headquarters easier. But the reality is, for example, finding individuals to put there and to supervise them, I don't want to tell you a story. I don't see that as something that the Bureau is pushing right now. Would we be willing to talk about it and discuss it? Absolutely. Absolutely. But that's not something right now that's on our radar.
Thank you again, Director. Last question from me would be, I think Chairman Engel may have one after. You showed a slide earlier with about 15,000, your backlog of 15,000. The vast majority of that was in one area. It looked like it was drug-related testing. Obviously, hiring your analyst or your lab technicians from that field is much cheaper than hiring your medical examiners. How many, can you tell us the average cost if you had to hire some people into that field to knock down that backload, what the average pay there would be and what you'd be looking at?
Connie, can you help me with that, what the average? Yes. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. And just for those listening online, it was 44,000 plus fringe. Thank you, because as you talked about, you've knocked out a lot of your low-hanging fruit. We want to help you, as you're addressing the medical examiner issue, continue to knock out the big areas, which may be your next lowest level fruit.
Yes, sir.
Continue working forward. Chairman England.
Okay, we got one last online question, and it comes from Representative Carolyn Hughley. In regard to your proposed outsourcing for backlogs on those testings, is any outsourcing going to the university system or private colleges like Emory or Morehouse, or is there something that keeps that from happening?
Yeah, what we did is, in order to outsource, the first goal we had to achieve was to find a lab with the same standards of certification that we have. And the reason why is because these cases are all criminal in nature. They're going to be prosecuted in a court of law potentially, or infringe on another individual's freedom. And so we made sure we found private labs or any labs that would qualify with the same standards as we did. Right now, that outsourcing is being done to private labs. If we found, and I'm sure we've looked, I apologize, I don't know, I can address it to her specifically, but if we found a lab, particularly a close-by lab, particularly one that was associated with the state that had the same standards we did, we would certainly discuss the possibility of doing that with them. But right now, that outsourcing is being done with private labs.
Director, I think you've exhausted the questions that we had both in the room and online. Thank you for being here.
Y'all.
Thank you to your staff as well for coming and being a part of
Thank
today.
you. Appreciate it. Good to see you. Thank you.
With that being said, Chairman England, go ahead.
Just one comment. I know folks want to go back and look at some of these presentations, either today or in the days following today, but just let you know that they will be posted online to the General Assembly's website, probably sometime this evening on the presentations that have been delivered today.
Thank you, Chairman England. Once again, I want to say thank you to House Media Services, Betsy, DJ, Justin. Michael, you've been here with us all day. Michael is an intern at Georgia State who's working with the House Media Services office. Michael, you keep doing as good a job as you did today. You might have a job before the end of this week. Just stay with us through session, we ask. That's right. Members, remember we will begin again tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. sharp. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Our first presenter will be at 8:05, and that will be Commissioner Ward from the Department of Corrections. With no further business, we will stand adjourned.